Hey everybody, welcome to Backyard Blue. Just two brothers talking sports and whatever else comes our way. I am brother number one by birth order anyway. That's me, Blake Miller. My students call me Mr. Miller. My mama calls me Moose. Brother number two on the other side of the screen. That is my brother from the same mother, Hunter Borland. Hunter, the hunt daddy, the head hunter. My daughter calls him Hump. Hump, what's happening?
Not a whole lot. Just had a busy weekend watching sports. There was a lot going on. A lot more sports than probably I could watch in one weekend, but it was a good time.
Yeah, it's pretty cool having all this back, just full go. You have 3 days of huge games with national championship last night and 2 days for wild card weekend. Not to mention you got regular season college basketball and NBA basketball. Like it's in full swing, and it's hard to imagine this back in March and April and May when the sports world was silent and we were fiending for Korean baseball. You
And
know,
dying for a virtual NASCAR race.
I know, was it iRacing? I
Yeah,
didn't watch
which
that. I did watch Korean baseball. That was
I
fun.
did watch one race, and it was actually really cool. I said they should start a whole thing out of this.
That was pretty cool. So wild card weekend was pretty fun. That Colts and Bills game was pretty awesome. What were your thoughts on that game?
My favorite game of the weekend. It started off the weekend really strong. I'm I'll watch NFL games, but I'm kind of doing something else. I started watching that one. I watched it the whole way through, uh, partly because Josh Allen has become my favorite player to watch in the NFL. This dude has a gun for an arm. That flick he
Hand
had
cannon.
to, that flick he had to Stephon Diggs in that first quarter. I mean, he dropped it or he threw it 45, 50 yards, and it just felt like he didn't even take a step into it. Just flick of the wrist, and it's 50 yards down the field. I know Patrick Mahomes probably has the best arm talent, maybe Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think anybody throws the ball as hard and as far as that guy can.
No.
But
Yeah, I
it
think you're
was a
right
good.
about that.
The Colts. I think the Colts had a lot of opportunities to win that game. A lot of poor decisions, maybe by Frank Reich, and then that offsides that they got, whereas fourth down and three, and they jumped. They shot themselves in the foot one too many times to beat a team that it's weird to say the Bills are a very good team. You can't do that to yourself.
It is weird to see. I am happy for that fan base, though. I feel like the Chiefs, the Browns, and the Bills all have like kind of similar fan base. Maybe even the Raiders to an extent when they were in Oakland, like just kind of rough and tumble. Just we're here to have a good
Right.
time, but I mean, it's about the party, but
They
we love our team unconditionally.
I'll say another one, and this is just because I went to a game last year, and it was the Giants versus the Jets, but it was a Jets home game. Jets fans are fun. They
Really?
have a good time. Their team doesn't do them justice, so you probably don't see it too much. But it was a really good time. Those guys are rowdy
It's been a while
and
since I've
girls.
seen a good Jets team, so that's probably part of the reason why we haven't seen
Yeah, that's
and
definitely
they
the
had no
reason.
fans this year. But
Yeah.
um, I think it's cool seeing the Bills succeeding. It's been a long time. It's always been kind of the Patriots are a one man show in that division since
Mhm.
what 2000. So it's fun seeing somebody else on top of that division, and I think they're going to be there a while.
That city
That
deserves
Ravens.
it. That
Oh
city
yeah,
deserves it. Like Jeff Calkins, obviously he's from Buffalo. He does, all the radio that I listen to him pretty much every day. But he always compares Buffalo and Memphis, similar cities. So because he says that, I kind of have a fondness for Buffalo and that team.
yeah. That Ravens Titans game was a interesting game. I was gonna say fun, but I don't know if fun is the right word for that game.
I don't know if it was fun. It was very old school. Two teams that wanted to run the ball, limit possessions. Uh, Even though the Titans defense isn't very good, and usually when you want to play that style of game, your defense you expect it to hold another team to a touchdown, maybe two touchdowns in a game. But it was a very throwback game. But instead of having really good running back, offensive line, and get 3 or 4 yards of carry, the Ravens have a video game like character in Lamar Jackson. He reminds me of the Michael Vick video game from '04, '05, '06, whichever one it was, where you could just snap the ball and then take off running. Uh, it is so much fun to watch. That run he had in the second quarter, where I think five people had the edge on him, and he beat all of them to the end zone. I mean, one guy was like 20 yards in front of him with the edge, and he still beat him. I mean, I don't know. That guy is something else. I think the Ravens are peaking at the right time.
I do too. I think the Titans had opportunities in that game. I remember as I was watching it, I just felt like every time they had a chance, they blew it.
Yeah.
Every time they had a chance to take the control of the game, they failed to do it. And the Ravens are good enough to hurt you when you don't take advantage of it. I think the Titans all year have been kind of a fraudulently good team. I don't think they're that good. I think they're good situationally, but it's hard to just go into the playoffs and win with just exclusively a run game. That run game is going to get shut down if people sell out for it, and you make Ryan Tannehill, as Michael Lombardi says about Jared Goff, you make him participate. And if he has to participate and be more than a play action passer, it's danger for the Titans. And somebody's going to figure out that I think the Bills are actually a better matchup than the Titans are to beat the Ravens. They've got some speed at linebacker that I think that the Titans don't have. I really like Matt Milano. I think he may be a little better, getting outside. They also have Poyer and Hyde at safety. I think they might have a better chance of getting outside and keeping Jackson hemmed up a little bit. But he's faster than every defensive back on the field too. So
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
He's the fastest guy on the field anytime he steps on the field, except for maybe
Just
when they
about.
play the Chiefs against Tyreek Hill, or I don't know, maybe when Devontae Smith's in the league next year. But that game's going to be that's going to be a really good game. I think that's going to be the most competitive game of the weekend, even though I don't have a great feel on any game. I think that's probably going to be the most competitive one, and I couldn't even guess who's going to
Yeah,
win that one.
it's going to be fun to watch. That's one outside of watching my Chiefs beat the Browns. That's the one I'm probably most excited about.
Yeah.
Do you think that the Titans and Ravens is the best rivalry in the NFL?
I think so. I think mostly because I couldn't tell you another big rivalry in the NFL right now that's outside of the division, but even in the division in most cases, because in most cases you got a team that's so much better, like in your division with the Chiefs. Yeah, that's a rivalry with the Broncos and the Raiders and the Chargers, but y'all are so much better than all three of those teams. Yeah, it's a rivalry, but it's a rivalry. It's like us and Ole Miss or Tennessee, Memphis and Ole Miss and Tennessee. Like it's a rivalry for us, but not so much for them.
Yeah,
So I don't know. The way the Ravens stomped on the Titans logo after the Titans did it, went out on their logo earlier in the year. Marcus Peters got the interception. You knew something was going to happen, but it looks like there's real bad blood between those two teams. Like they hate each other, and the coaches I think dislike each other a lot.
they both have these two kind of personas that seem to clash too. They're very very similar, like just kind of rah rah guys in your face.
Yep.
The only other rivalry that I could think of that was like kind of on that same level would be the Steelers and the Ravens, and I'd probably say that one's a little more intense, especially because they play twice a year, and they have that heat in the game every every time, and it got me to thinking like, are the Ravens just the common factor here? They just tick everybody off, make everybody mad, and they make all these games feel like a rival because by the end of it, you hate them. I was thinking about the Chiefs. The Chiefs have beat them 3 times in a row, but the Ravens seem to think that they're better than the Chiefs, which is, you know, no.
I do
But
think the way they play and in their division, like just the way they play run the ball, they play defense, they let you know about it if they hit you hard or make a big play. Like if Lamar Jackson, he's not so much of a trash talker, but the guys around him will trash talk for him.
oh yeah,
So if there's a
big
big play,
trucks.
yeah, like Marquise Brown is not afraid to talk smack.
No,
I know Des Bryant, he's Cowboy legend. He will talk crap to you. Mark Ingram will talk smack. Like they just have a lot of guys. They're going to let you know when they do something good.
yeah, that Bears Saints game was not fun at all.
Boo! Man, that was bad. I don't know it. You knew the Saints were going to beat the Bears, but I thought the Bears would score a touchdown. I it was I don't know. They it amazes me their defense going back to like the 70s, 80s has always been championship level or close to it. They've always had a great defense, and it just seems that their offense is never up to par. I mean, even like what 85 when they won their offense still wasn't great. It was good enough to win the Super Bowl, but it still wasn't like an awesome offense. And I've heard that playing in that stadium, playing next to the lake there, that quarterbacks have a little bit of trouble, all the wind, just the weather. the way that stadium's set up. I don't know, but you would think at some point they would build an offense, and it never happens.
You know, they really haven't had a time period. I think since we've been fans, like really, really close to the game. I'm just thinking the last 15 years. We've been fans longer than that, but I don't remember them having a great quarterback. Like, I mean, and you go back and look through history, they haven't. Like, I mean, I think Jay Cutler might be
Jim
the
McMahon
best
and Jay
quarterback they've
Cutler.
had. Yeah, I mean, really, I think Jay Cutler might be the best quarterback they've had. Trubisky's not far from him. Like, Trubisky's had moments where you think he's got a lot of talent, but his decision making is just so poor.
And I
Um,
think Nagy doesn't put him in great positions either. I think Nagy tries to be smarter than everybody else. And in the NFL, I know there's guys that scheme really like Andy Reid, but I don't think in the NFL you're really just that much smarter than anybody else in the league. I think if you're trying to pretend you are, you end up where Nagy's at. They're probably going to keep him next year, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets fired.
they said he's coming back. I did hear that. Nagy runs his offense almost like Alex Smith was his quarterback. He was the play caller that last. I think he was the play caller in Alex Smith's like great season, maybe the year before. But
Yeah.
Alex Smith played really well with him as the play caller, and it was a late season change, and Nagy got all this love because he's winning, putting up good numbers with Alex Smith. The offense had kind of been in a rut, and he took over. I think Nagy's a good play caller, but I think part of being a good play caller is having a quarterback that makes good decisions. It's just not. Trubisky's not the right fit for him, and it seemed like it might have been because he's mobile and has similar qualities to Alex Smith. But Alex is so cerebral, and I just don't think it was. It's not a good fit. It got
No.
me to thinking like there's going to be so much quarterback change. We could talk about this on another show, but there's at least 7 or 8 teams who have major quarterback questions, maybe more than that.
And there was a lot last offseason too.
Yep, you're going to
There was
start
a lot of
seeing that.
changes.
There's going to be some of the older guys are going to retire at some point. You're going to see teams go the rebuilding route. You're going to see, you might see Roethlisberger, Rivers, Brady, and Breeze all be gone. I mean, it's. I don't think they're all going to be gone. They may all come back, but there's at least they're all at that age where there's going to be a question every year now. And
Well,
then
I
you've
think
got
too
some that
that
are performance related.
yeah, I think too organizations now, if they draft a quarterback in the first round, they're willing to give you 2 years, maybe three, but they're not afraid to pull the plug anymore. Where used to, if you draft a quarterback in the top five or in the first round at all, you got to give them that full rookie contract, 4 to 5 years, and see if you can make it happen and build around them. And I think teams know and coaches know now after 2 years. Like there was even questions about Tua. Like people are questioning him, like is he the guy? And it's like he
Rightfully
played.
so.
What did he play 10 games?
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe he is or he isn't, but used to you had a longer leash, and now organizations are that leash has gotten way shorter.
for sure. I think especially if you're a certain level of bad, like Josh Rosen bad
Yeah,
or Dwayne Haskins bad, you're the plug. The leash is very short. The plug will be
yeah.
pulled quickly if you don't perform. You're going to see some other ones. I think Tua will get a little longer leash, probably 3 to 4 years. He wasn't bad enough to give up on him. But if
And they
there's
didn't
somebody
open up the
sitting there,
playbook for him either.
yeah, I don't think they're. Yeah, you're right. I think the weapons around him were not great either. Like he's trying to, win games with Shaheen and Smythe as his best receivers. There were games when Gesicki and Parker were out, and he's like
Yeah,
Jakeem Grant. I'm like that dude couldn't touch the field last year. Anyway, I think there's going to be a lot of quarterback movement, and I think maybe the Bears can, get somebody in there that gives them some respectable offense. There's gonna be plenty of movement. Something's gonna happen, and I think Trubisky may be one of those guys that's on his way out just because it's not the right fit.
yeah.
I did enjoy the slime in the end zone, and I kind of enjoyed they had the Gabby in the booth that was kind of asking questions that it was cool. It made me wonder, like it reminded me of like reading Sports Illustrated for kids when I was younger, and just kind of learning little ins and outs of the game that I didn't know already as an 8, 9 year old. It was really cool as a elementary middle school kid to hear some of those things and pick
I
up on
flipped
some of those
I flipped it
things.
on for a few minutes, and it was interesting. I'll be honest. I flipped it on for a few minutes, and I turned the whole game. I mean, I didn't watch the game at all.
Yeah.
I watched the first quarter, and I was like, I can't get into it. I've watched I've watched five decently good games. I can't watch this one.
You can put powdered sugar on a turd, but it's still a turd. That's what that
Yeah,
game was.
and that was a turd of a game.
It was pretty bad. The only other one, it's the only other game I think we should even mention is the Tampa Washington game. And I don't even care to talk about Washington. I didn't expect them to stay really be in it. But to me, Tampa's hard to read.
Yeah.
I just don't know who they are. Like,
I don't I'm with you. I mean, for a minute there, it looked like they were going to blow them out. When I heard Alex Smith was out, probably stupidly went and hammered -10. But I was like, there's no way that Washington team's going to be able to score. Uh, but I don't know. Tampa just, yeah, like you said, you can't figure them out. They have so many weapons. Fournette did look really good. I thought that was a bright spot for them because he didn't look good much of the year. Uh,
no,
but yeah,
opposite.
I just can't figure them out. Their defense looked so stout against the Packers earlier in the year that I was like, man, if this defense plays anywhere close to this level of football, this is the best team in the NFL. But their offensive line is suspect, and their defense hasn't played to that level since that game.
I'm thinking about this weekend's game against New Orleans, and I know it's tough to beat a team 3 times, but I just feel like the Saints are the better team, and I'm not a huge Saints believer, but I just feel like the Saints are better than them. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just not a Bucks believer yet, and it might be the Bruce Arians scheme. It might be the defense. I know the back end of the defense is not that great. Drew Brees doesn't look that good either, so I don't know. It's
And I
yet
think
another
that may
game I
be,
have no feel for.
I think that may be what the reason the Bucks win this weekend is because their back end of their defense is not good. They don't have to lay off the receivers as much because Drew Brees can't throw the ball downfield at all. I mean, you saw with Big Ben in that Steelers game, the Browns just, I mean, made him look like a rookie quarterback that had never played a game in his life. Like maybe the Buccaneers can force some turnovers, but I'm with you. I don't even. I'm staying away from that game if you're going to bet it, but if there's a blowout either way, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I can't get a feel for what the game is going to turn out to, so I'm probably not betting that. I'm probably not betting any. I'm probably not going to bet any of the games this week. I may find some player props that I like, but for the most part, I think
Yeah.
I'm going to stay away from the spreads. I'll look at the totals closer to game time. But
Yep.
right now, I don't have a feel for any of them. Um, the the other thing you mentioned was Ben Roethlisberger. He's cooked, I think.
Done. $41
I
million next year, though.
I
You
want to.
think he
I'd
comes
like to
back?
dig into his contract a little more. Like
Yeah.
if he's got any outs, what his roster bonus is. I think they're better off trying to move on, go with a young quarterback, or bring in a veteran who might go somewhere else, like Stafford or Ryan. There's a lot of guys you could see changing jobs, but heck, they might be better with freaking Josh Dobbs than they were with him.
I just wonder if somebody that competitive, been around that long, is that how you go out? You know what I mean? Like, will his mind and his competitiveness let him go out that way? I think he's done, but it's just interesting. That's going to be an interesting storyline for that team because I think they're on the verge of a major rebuild.
It's not far off. I mean, they're kind of an aging roster. The I was going to mention Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's last year. I know he won the Super Bowl in that last year. But if Peyton Manning was on any other roster, it wouldn't have happened. That Denver defense and on his skill position, the skill players on that team, the offensive line were great. He was the worst starter on that team that year.
And the
One
only
of them.
thing that made him be the reason he started was because he could get his offense into the right play was pretty
Yep.
much the entire reason he kept that starting job, and it wasn't because he could throw the ball. It was he knew what play they needed to be in, and maybe that helped him win. Who knows? But that defense won that Super Bowl.
Ben was kind of the same situation this year. The defense definitely carried that roster. You had good skill position players you could get it to short. He could get it deep every now and then. I just think that his best days are behind him. That's not a hot take. I think it wouldn't shock me if that was his last game at
Yeah.
all. Looking ahead at these different matchups, do you have a thought on any of them?
You know, as far as betting goes, I'm kind of with you. I probably stay away from all of them. The only one that I may take is Browns +10, and the only reason I say that is the Chiefs are 1-7 in their last eight in covering against the spread. and as a double-digit favorite, I think they're 3-6 on the year. So that would be my only reason for taking that. And the Browns have, I think they've covered, I think they're like 5-1 their last six on the road. So, uh, but other than that, I think the Packers kill the Rams. I don't even think that's a close game. I mean, the Rams, their defense is good enough to maybe keep them in a little bit, but their offense is kind of the same as the Bears. I don't think they can score.
Especially if Goff is playing with a bum thumb in the cold. Like he couldn't play, he couldn't grip the ball. I know he's got another week to heal, but he couldn't quite grip the ball correctly in decent weather.
Yeah.
Playing freezing cold in Green Bay is going to be a little different. I'm with you on that one. I don't have a feel for the Ravens and Bills. I guess I'd lean towards the Bills, but I'm scared of the
Yeah, we talked
Ravens.
about that one earlier. Yeah.
I think the Chiefs, it wouldn't shock me if they come out and just kill the Browns. I could just kill them.
I was going to ask you about this game. Your concern level, is there any concern for this game?
No. Nope.
Because I would only concern I would have, and me and you've talked about this multiple times, is if the Chiefs get into a game where like they did last year, they go down 21-0 to a team like the Browns they're going to control the line of scrimmage on offense. I mean, I think they're going to run the ball at will, but can they run the ball at will if they get down 10-0, 14-0 pretty quick and they got to go to Baker Mayfield? I think if they're have a chance to win, they got to come out and get up a touchdown, two touchdowns early, and they can have a shot. If not, I think, like you said, they could get blown out.
I Kansas City hadn't had its whole defense in a while, and I think having Hitchens back is going to make a big difference if he is indeed back, which it sounds like he is. And I don't want to look into the status of Willie Gay if he's going to play. He helps on the outside runs. Hitchens is really good at making sure they've got the right run fits, things of that nature. They've gotten better against the run. They're better against the run when they have their whole defense. And I just think they've been experimenting with a lot of stuff throughout the year, trying to see what works and what doesn't. I just, man, I just feel like they're going to come out and blow the doors off of them. They haven't had a game like that in a long time. They're too good to be playing as bad and down to the competition that they have. I'm still not going to bet it, but
I wouldn't be surprised if they kill him, but I would just
I feel
be
like I have and it could be they kill them and win by 9. Like it's
yeah
possible they win by 7 or 9. Like you just knew they dominated the whole game, but they let them. They played prevent defense in the fourth quarter and they came back and they didn't cover. That's why I'm not going to bet it. I don't think I'm going to bet any of these games on the spread, but I do feel pretty confident about the Chiefs. I feel confident about the Chiefs against any of these teams left in the AFC.
I
I'm
did see a
slightly
good
afraid of the Bills, slightly afraid of the Ravens. I'm most afraid of running into the Packers in the Super Bowl.
I
I
did
think
see a
if we
pretty good
lose,
joke earlier. Go ahead.
huh? Okay, yeah.
I
Well, I was
saw a
going to say
pretty
I
good
think
joke earlier about Andy Reid, but
there's plenty of jokes to go around about him.
well, it's the
If we
Kareem one. Go ahead, sorry.
if we lose, I think it's going to be one of those things where you can point back to it's not the fault, it's not the greatness of the other team. It's going to be the mistakes they make themselves. I just think if they play their best game, their best is so much better than everybody else's best. It's pretty ridiculous, and I don't know how long that will last. But I do think their best game is better than anybody else's best game. I don't think there's a defense you could play on them that is good enough to consistently stop them. That they're gonna figure it out. You know, if you figure it out, you can get up 28-0, and they're still gonna feel like they're gonna win.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I've never seen a team like that. I don't know. It's kind of like I'm just gonna believe that they're gonna win until they don't,
Yeah.
and
I don't
I'll
blame
have that
you.
even against Green Bay.
I don't blame you. But no, this real quick, this joke it said it was like Kareem Hunt tweeted, "This one's personal for me on to Kansas City or something like that." It's all a joke. It wasn't like his actual account. And then it was Andy Reid reply, and it said, "When we drafted you, Kareem Hunt, somebody told me let's take cream. I thought you were a donut, so this is the second time you've let me down."
That's awesome.
I laughed to
Golly,
myself pretty hard.
man. I would say one thing that would make me hesitate a little bit is if Clyde can't play, and it sounds like at least from yesterday. Now I know they haven't gone into like full practice and everything, but it sounded like he was trending towards him playing. I don't know if that's actually going to happen. He makes a huge difference in the run game, just being able to control the clock a little more. I don't know. I'm not afraid. The Browns are a good enough team to beat anybody. Obviously, we lost one game to the Raiders this year. It could happen. I just don't. I don't. I'm not worried. I don't go into the game worried,
Well, and the
which is
Browns, I don't
probably
think can rush you with just their front four. Like I've said in the past, I think that's the way you have to beat the Chiefs. And I
not
don't.
without Olivier Vernon.
I know Miles Garrett's awesome, but they're going to double team him. I think he had one tackle last week, no sacks,
Yeah.
so he'll get double teamed. And yeah, I don't foresee an upset, but I was just curious if you were nervous.
I mean,
It's a
to an
nervousness because
extent.
it's an NFL playoff game and it's your team,
Yeah.
so there's a nervousness to it no matter what. But
Pretty much. I really. It sounds like Mitchell Schwartz, our phenomenal All-Pro right tackle, might not be ready either, which is a little bit unnerving with his back injury he's had. I would very much like to have him out there, but our offensive line is awful. But it's one of those things like they just put so much on Mahomes and he's able to handle it. If he stays
yeah,
upright, then I'm not worried. But if he goes down early, who knows what could happen. I don't have a feel for the Bucks and Saints either. Like we said earlier, this could be just kind of a toss up. Ravens Bills, same thing. I think you're going to see a lot of good games this weekend, and I think
I think
even
it'll
in
be a
the
good weekend
Packers, even the Packers Chiefs, if they blow them out, they're teams that are fun to watch them blow somebody out. The
yeah.
offense is you're going to see a lot of fireworks. I think the
It's not
Ravens
that
Bills
Saints
Bucks Saints will be
Bears
fun.
game.
Yeah, yeah. You might need some slime in the end zone. Who knows?
There'd be a lot of slime in it. If they make it
Oh
to the
man,
Super Bowl, Packers Chiefs, they should do a Nickelodeon broadcast because that would be a lot of slime in the end zone in that game.
they're gonna run out of it. Last year,
It'll be like the
what
Alabama offense and whoever else. It'd be like this national championship game.
we'll get on that in a minute. Last year when they were down, two things I wanted to say when the Chiefs were down to the Texans 24-0, they had better odds to win the game outright, down 24-0, than the Texans had at the start of the game. That's ridiculous.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. That tells you Vegas like hubris with the Chiefs. The other thing, I think they scored 52 points in that game. They ran out of touchdown fireworks. They ran out of touchdown fireworks. Like that's unbelievable. You ran out of touchdown
it
fireworks. How does that happen? Like,
and we've talked about it before. I think that offense is better than any offense. I think the Packers can keep up with them. I think that offense is good enough, but it would. I mean, I would be concerned that they got to turn it on, and they haven't turned it on yet this year. The only time they did was the Ravens game, and that was really early, and it felt like the rest of the year they just kind of just put it in cruise mode and was like, oh, we'll win. Even if we have to score a touchdown last minute of the game or make a defensive stop, and that would be concerning that you're going to run into teams that are better than you've played all year. And I don't know. It'll be fun. I still think they get to the Super Bowl with all that said.
I do too. I mean, but anybody could be anybody on any weekend in the NFL. It's the
For sure.
toughest league to win in. Anybody can win.
For sure.
So on to the NBA, the Grizzlies, and I hadn't thought about this. The Grizzlies they're 4-4 since Ja went out, and
Yep.
if you're including the Brooklyn
Game
game in which
together.
he got hurt. What do you think about that?
We kind of talked about it, I think, last week where I was like, man, can they stay afloat? And I even said, I think 2 weeks ago that I was like, well, let's start look at the lottery and so let's start doing some NBA draft research because maybe we can get that wing score that we've been missing through the draft. But I think us being 4-4 and it's basically our bench is our starters right now. I mean, you got Jonas and you got Dylan Brooks, but I mean that's a bench unit that you're starting, and you can see them clicking now. You can see the Tyus Jones and Brandon Clark clicking, and this will be an off subject point, but I think Dylan Brooks works well with that group. So maybe
Yep.
when everybody comes back, he can make that go to the bench and run with that group. But
Yeah.
I think you got to have you got to feel pretty confident that when you get your guys back, that this is the group that's going to be coming off the bench for you. And obviously, Ja is all-star level player already. And if Jaron is what he was at the end of last year and the start of the bubble, I think we could go on a little run. And we got the Timberwolves the next two games, so you can go 1-1 in that. I don't expect us to win both, but maybe we get some guys back soon, and you can stay 500 while they were gone. That'd be a huge win for us.
When you started saying that, I started looking at the upcoming schedule, and you go two against the Timberwolves, which I think you should get at least a split out of that. You go at home with Philly. That's
Who
probably a
knows who's going to be
loss.
playing for Well, with their
It's
COVID
true.
stuff, you don't
You're
even
right.
know who's going to be playing for them right now.
You're right. You don't know if he's going to play for us either. But
Yeah, that's true.
Philly feels like this is probably a fool's errand at all. Trying to look at an upcoming schedule, given what the NBA circumstances are right now. You know, Philly's always killed us. Like they've always all in this Embiid era, they've always given us trouble. The Suns at home, and then we go two at Portland, and then two with Sacramento in our house. So I feel like you look at that, you're thinking if we get one against Portland, one or two against Sacramento, one or two against Minnesota, and you might sneak out one against the Sixers or the Suns. Like you go the 4-4 in that stretch is reasonable. 0-8 is probably reasonable too,
Yeah.
but 4-4 in that stretch, and then you're talking that gets you all the way to January 25th, where you're starting to probably get in the window of where everybody's coming back. People could be back sooner than that, maybe a little later, but
Yeah.
that's a if you do that, which seems feasible given what we've been seeing, I think that's a big accomplishment.
Well, and I was listening to Vernon today that he was kind of hinting at next week as a return for some guys. That wasn't information that he's gotten, but just you read kind of the tea leaves with tweets. I know that's kind of silly to go, oh, let's go by this player's tweet, but Ja was dunking 5 days ago in warmups, and I don't. Maybe you can get one of them back by Martin Luther King Day, but he seems to think that maybe by next week, like a week from today, that we could have our guys back, at least maybe two of the three. And if that's the case, it's a whole different ballgame for playing Portland and the Kings. The Kings are good. I wouldn't expect to win one of those games. That's a really good team.
Man, I
The
don't
Aaron
know.
Fox is awesome.
He is really good, but I still like. I think we're good enough even with what we have. They play together enough to beat a team like that. It wouldn't completely shock me. Anyway, it'd be really cool if we get those guys back pretty soon. But I am impressed with how they've held down the fort in that time. I do think that there is a chance they still make the playoffs and in the play-in game. And my free bets I've used on Ja for most improved might come back to fruition. I doubt it, but it's possible. You talked about the Sixers a minute ago with all the COVID issues. Do you think the NBA should do anything differently besides the protocols they're starting to put out today?
Well, they put out some stuff today, like they can't after the games, you can't like go up and dap anybody up or give hugs to like the opposing team. You can't give high fives at the free throw line. Which some of that stuff, I guess you got to wear a mask the whole time on the bench, and they're gonna have a whole other separate bench where when you come out of a game,
The
you can
cool
sit on.
down.
Yeah, you can sit on without a mask for a little bit. I think that you got these guys that are sweating and rubbing up against each other while they play a game. It seems like we're overthinking it a little bit. I think these guys that are getting it are probably picking it up at home or on their free time or whatever it may be, not on the court. Uh, but with that said, I don't know if they should be tightening it, loosening the protocols. I don't know. I'm not smart enough. They got way smarter people in that office than me. But I think the easiest thing would maybe extend the rosters. You're about to go to a bubble with your G League. And I get that you want to get that G League to play, get some of these guys their timing. Maybe you can fly people in from the bubble to play on your team. But I would be extending your active roster and letting these guys practice and play. That way, uh, somebody goes down and you get three or four people that are in protocol, you can bring three or four people in. That's not, great for your team, but you can at least get the games in. That's the most
Yeah.
important thing.
I think what Major League Baseball did during their season when they had the roster instead of it was going to be 26, and I think they had it at 30, and they're reducing it to 28. So just having a couple extra bodies helped with that in case anybody tested positive. Then they also had their 60-man, like basically what amounted to a taxi squad, where you were everybody was at an alternate site similar to what the bubble has. So the Cubs had some people in South Bend, Indiana, and whenever a player, they didn't have anybody test positive, but if
Practicing,
they
staying
could,
loose, staying in
yeah,
shape. Yep.
with their own guys, but and the NBA is not going to do anything like that. But you could very quickly call somebody up from that.
Yeah.
You do have a bigger active roster, but you also have that big pool of players to dip into. I'm gonna be really interested to see how all this stuff works. I do think this is more. I don't know that it's PR. I don't know that it's just a PR move, but it feels like one of those things where they're trying to control what they can conceivably control. The
Yeah.
only thing they can, I mean, obviously, not playing the game would be fully controlling it, but that's not really an option. They're saying, what can we do outside of that to limit our exposure? We know we're playing the game. Doesn't exist between the lines of the game, but we're going to do what we can on the court besides just simply playing the game to limit as much as we can, or at least have the appearance of limiting it as much as we can. Somebody today, I think it was Jeffrey Giannato, maybe saying like, well, we don't have data to prove that it's, that it spreads through handshakes on the court. I'm like, it doesn't really matter. Like it's like they can control this. This is a possibility that it's doing this. That's enough. So
Yeah.
you take the proactive measure, aside from canceling the games, which they're not, I mean, aside from completely canceling their season, which they're not going to do.
They're not going to do. They're
Got to
not going
make
to
their
go back
money.
to a bubble. So
No.
they're going to push through the season just like college football did, just like the NFL did, Major League. They're going to push through it, and but we saw in every other league early on there was issues, and then it got serious. They're like, look, they started
Mm-hmm.
finding people, they started finding teams in the NFL, MLB. Uh, they cracked down, and it was like, okay, this is serious. We got to take it as such and get through this season if you want to get paid. And I think we'll see these COVID issues continue for another few weeks, and then I think it'll ease up, and we'll get through it just fine.
I think so too. Speaking of COVID stuff, I think our boy, not our boy, this person named Kyrie Irving. You've heard of him probably.
Yeah,
He seems to always have a story around him.
yeah,
He's probably gonna be facing a lengthy COVID sideline visit for a while. I'd imagine. There seems to always be controversy around him. Always.
yeah, yep. He he didn't show up to the game the other day after the Capitol building stuff, which that's fine if that's the way you want to handle it. Okay, but let your coach know. I mean, he didn't even tell Steve Nash. Steve Nash, like 20 minutes before the game, was asked about him, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't even know that he wasn't showing up for the game." And to me, if I wasn't going to show up for work or something, I got to text my boss. I don't just not show up or text somebody that I work with going, "Hey, I'm not going to be there today. Don't really feel like coming in." And then he's seen not wearing a mask at a family deal with a bunch of people. I don't know if it was a party or what, but it's always something. And my thing is KD regretting his decision going and teaming up with Kyrie? I mean, he's awesome on the court. There's no doubt. When he's on the court, he's a top 10 player. But he's never won nothing outside of LeBron James. And I don't know. If I was KD, I'd be a little nervous.
Is Grady gonna make an appearance on the show?
I don't know. He just walked in. We may get a
G
well.
man.
Well, Grady's downstairs, but the cat that has adopted us, we haven't adopted it. It's adopted us. Just came walking through the house. So, every once in a while, I'm sitting in my chair upstairs working, and I feel a tail hit my back. Earlier, I jumped out of my seat because the damn cat was behind me.
I
I'm a
could
cat
totally
guy
do
now.
it.
I'm a
So
cat guy now.
Mr. Catman.
Yeah,
Well, I'm as far as Kyrie goes, man. He kind of reminds me of like Terrell Owens, where he's like one of the best in the league talent wise, but like I don't know if anybody's gonna want to play with this dude anymore. I don't want that dude on my team. Fans don't want to root for him. He's got some pretty cool shoes sometimes. Like SpongeBob ones are I mean, they're just awesome. They're really
I love those Friends ones. I want to get those
yeah,
Friends ones.
they're pretty cool. I like those. He's got one seemingly every year that's really cool. This is odd, man. This whole thing is odd, but it's kind of like part of the deal with Kyrie. This is what you get. I feel like
Yeah.
this is the closest thing to like the Rodman and the Last Dance stuff, where you just go to Vegas. But at least he notified somebody. I guess I don't know. Hey, I'm going to Vegas for 72 hours. Phil
I
Jackson
think
let it
him and
happen.
James
Well,
Harden should team up somewhere and they can just do their own thing, win 30 games a year and score 40 points each and let them be happy because that's obviously, I think, what they want to do.
I'm kind of over Kyrie, man. I can't pay this story much attention. I do want to read. I thought the statement was from Sean Marks. Their GM had some interesting wording to it. It says we are aware of a video on social media featuring Kyrie Irving at a family gathering. Family gathering. We are reviewing the circumstances with both Kyrie and the NBA in order to determine compliance with health and safety protocols. Kyrie remains away from the team due to personal reasons. A date of his return has yet to be finalized. In the meantime, we will continue to stay focused on our organizational goals. Kyrie will have the opportunity to address his absence when he is ready to do so.
Well,
Bruh.
he's boycotting the media right now, so he's not going to do that.
Gosh, this dude is
It's always
bananas.
something. It's always
I
something.
liked my favorite part of that whole thing was the family gathering. Like this is some freaking picnic at Shelby Farms. Like we're all on a blanket, eating sandwiches, staring at the stars.
Let me get some more lemonade.
Please, what you put
Oh
on the grill,
man.
Junior?
Oh man.
That's what it
I
feels
don't
like.
know.
A family gathering.
It's I don't know, man. I'm just so over him. Like his drama is it's always something.
It's
It's always
something all the
something.
time, all the time. I do think Katie might be able to win without him though. I think they might miss Dinwiddie more than Kyrie. Is that possible? Do they miss Spencer Dinwiddie more than Kyrie? I don't know. Maybe.
Well, if you had Dinwiddie, then you could just throw Levert in the starting lineup because Levert is a dude. That man is he
Man,
is a bucket. He is a walking
he's
bucket.
he's awesome. I love watching that guy.
Me
I
too.
really do love watching him play. So we mentioned the
I would
big
take him on the
weekend,
Grizzlies right now.
dude. I would love that. Totally love that. You mentioned the big weekend in sports. We ended it last night with the national championship game. You put in our show notes. You think this might be the best Alabama team ever? What do you think?
So I've watched Alabama since Saban. I remember when Saban made the decision. It was after I got out of school and came home and was watching Sports Center. I was like, "Holy crap! Saban's leaving Miami and going to Alabama." And Dad always called me headhunter. He said I was going to play middle linebacker for University of Alabama. He told me that since I was like 5 years old. So I've always
Still
had a little
waiting.
soft. Yeah, still waiting. That ain't happening. I've always had a soft spot for Alabama. So always watched them. Always consider them one of like the team that had a chance to win a title was my favorite team, and I think their defense isn't near as good as Alabama teams of like 08, 09, like those years. They don't have the playmaker on defense that is just wrecks a whole offense for another team. But the offense this year, I think, is better than LSU's offense last year. And I think the way they just destroyed everyone, they played 10 regular season SEC games, more than any other SEC team in history, won the SEC championship game, they dominated Notre Dame. And then Ohio State was supposed to be the best threat to them. And they just, if Devontae Smith would have played in the second half, I think they would have put up 60 something, maybe 70 points against Ohio. They could have kept the throttle down. Just their margin of victory was the widest of any team in history, I think. Uh, I think they're the best Alabama team of all time and one, maybe top three college football team of all time. That's my opinion.
I think their offense was awesome, and I think what's most impressive about them is it doesn't seem like a bunch of complex schemes. Like it's not.
No.
It's just doing the simple stuff so much better than your opponent.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff they were doing, like touchdowns, just a running back in the flat with wide receivers blocking. Like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
I feel like they've got a factory of guys at running back, a wide receiver, and O line. I was talking to a coworker this morning. It's just like, okay, the so Waddle's out and Smith is hurt. They're just gonna bring in another 5-star who's a sophomore, who's awesome
And they
and
got three wide
probably a
receivers
top
coming in
five.
next year that are like the best three wide receivers in the country.
It really is like a factory there. I mean a it's an awesome skill position lineman, just an awesome football player factory. That is what Alabama is. It's almost like they grow them down there.
It's
It's really impressive. And
yeah.
Ohio State had chances in the game. I, their defense is not as good as other Bama teams. They win in different ways. It's more we're going to outscore you.
Yeah.
We are going to just stop you. I thought Ohio State had chances to take control of the game last night too, but it seemed like, all right, we got 3rd and 6, offsides, convert. All right, we'll stop you on 3rd and 6, 4th and 2, convert.
Yeah.
Stop you third and goal, fourth and goal. All right, convert. And it was just like Ohio State just couldn't quite get over the hump. I think they're good
Yeah.
enough. No pun intended. Hump. Uh, I think they're good enough. Ohio State was good enough to at least keep that game close last night, and I think anyone who thought they would cover is not out of their mind. I was not one of those people. Um, I think if they play that game 10 times, I think Ohio State probably win one or two of them.
Yeah.
But
I,
Bama's are
I,
really good. And
I just haven't seen a player like Devontae Smith where the opposing team knows what Alabama's going to do. You're going to get that guy the ball on screens. He's going to hit little verticals down the field, and you can't stop him. I mean, you know exactly. And they ran a few things that were different to get him in motion yesterday, like that touchdown where they brought him in motion, stopped and ran back the other way, tossed it to him. But I don't know. I think he's probably the most explosive skill position player that I've watched in college football for a
it's
single
pretty
season.
awesome.
I mean, it was the Devontae Smith show in the first half.
He's great. I do think the SEC. I tend to not. I don't put a lot of stock in the margin of victory thing. Um, I mean, maybe I should. I think the teams they beat this year, I think the SEC was very weak in comparison to what it usually is. I think Florida was the only really good team in the SEC they beat, and I guess you could say
Well,
Texas
and Texas
A&M.
A&M. Texas
Yeah,
A&M
I
was
but
good.
I still like I'm not. I think Ohio State was better than on both of those teams by
Yeah.
a pretty wide margin. I think Clemson would have been a good match. I think it's if you look at them compared to the rest of the league, rest of the SEC and the rest of college football, then I think it's probably wise to say they're you know
I
one of
think
the best ever.
the margin of victory thing, maybe in years past, because you get a team like they play Louisiana Monroe or, whatever crappy school that they get to play for two or three times in a year and they beat them 60 something to nothing. And that adds to that margin of victory. And even though this SEC was down this year, you're still playing SEC caliber teams. Like, I mean, and player 4 and 5 star recruits on these teams. Like, it's not like playing these FCS teams that they normally play every year, where it
Yeah, not a
increases that
directional
margin of
school.
victory. Yeah. So I think that was the only reason I brought that up was just because they actually played real schools every game of the year this year.
It's more important, more impressive to beat Kentucky 60-3 or whatever they beat them than it is to beat Monroe or Georgia Southern or somebody like that. I get
Yeah.
that completely. So it got me to thinking. Now that Saban has the most national championships of all time in college football, if I would put together a power ranking 1 through 5, your 5 best coaches in your lifetime, regardless of sport. Now we're talking about like you're born in '92. Sorry, I'm not supposed to reveal your age. Is that okay?
Yeah.
28. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I'm
we're good.
33. So in our lifetimes, who are our best coaches? Now that takes off like Lombardi, Red Auerbach, lots of greats
All the ones that are
throughout.
considered the greatest of all time.
John Wooden. We're taking a lot of those
Yeah.
out. We're just going from the '90s on, basically. Who are the best coaches of that era of sports? You want to give us your top 5?
Yeah, so I'll go 5 to 1. Is that how you want to do it, or 1 to 5?
Yeah, let's go. That's cool. 5-1. Who's your number
So
5?
five, so 5 to 1. My number 5. This is probably gonna, throw you for a loop or throw a lot of people for a loop. And maybe this is my Cardinals fandom coming out, but it's Tony La Russa. And so I was just looking up. I wanted to look at every sport, and I was like, I definitely want to have somebody from trying to do every major sport as far as NBA, NFL, and Major League Baseball goes. And La Russa, just looking back at his tenure, he goes back managing before I was alive, but he won 2 titles with the Cardinals in '06 and '11, and he won one in '89. Uh, he's got 3 that's tied for the second most in basically since '89. The only one that's got more is Joe Torre, and I think that has more to do with the Yankees and the teams that he had
Yep.
than him as a manager. And the only other one is Bruce Bochy. I think I got his last name right for the
You got it right.
Giants. But he hadn't managed near as long, and his win percentage is like 48 or 49 1%. Tony La Russa is like 56 or 57, which is a pretty big gap when you think about how many games they've managed. So he was my number 5. You probably highly disagree with that one,
I don't. It's
but
not crazy to me. It's not crazy to put him up there because he wins, and how this dude at 950 years old is going to manage the White Sox is going to be kind of interesting.
and he'll
He's
probably win. He'll
probably
probably win.
probably
I think
so.
it's cool because I completely forgot that he managed them as his first job, which is
Yep,
kind of cool. So
that's kind of
that's
cool.
cool for him to go back. Do you want to do your number five, or you want me to go through my whole list?
Go through your whole list, and I'll do mine.
So number four, Phil Jackson. I think it kind of speaks for itself. Won six with the Bulls. Uh, what he had a three-peat with the Lakers in the early 2000s, and then won again or won two more with Kobe in '08 and '09, I think, and Pau Gasol. I mean, it just kind of speaks for itself. 10 titles is ridiculous. Yeah, he had the players, but everybody that is a good coach or manager has the players, and he won
Yes.
with them. Uh, my number three is Coach K. And again, you can go for the titles or whatever you want to do. But you go back and look when he took over Duke, they didn't go to a tournament for the first 4 years, I believe, maybe 5 years. And Duke was not a basketball program. Like nobody knew who Duke basketball was. He was at Army before that and wasn't good. But he took Duke from a team nobody knew about to they are probably the number one brand in college basketball now. Like if that job came open, I think every coach in America would want that job. They would leave their
Yeah.
current job for it. And I think he solely built that himself. So I think he's got to be on the list. Uh, two is Nick Saban. And you could just go with his time at Bama and not even count his title at LSU and being at Michigan State and doing pretty well there. But this record at Alabama is amazing. 170 and 23. He was
Jeez.
6-6 his first year, so he's lost 17 games in his last 13 seasons.
It's insane.
It's crazy. And then 6-2 in national championship games. Um, he's the best coach of all time in college football. I don't think it's close. Bear Bryant is number two, but I mean, it's not close. And then number one, Bill Belichick. And this is the reason I picked him. He's the best coach in the hardest league to win.
Yep. I'm in agreement with a good chunk of yours. I mean, 60% of it is the same guys. My number five is Coach K for a lot of the same reasons that you said. Like arriving there in 1980. Five titles is not crazy, but it's a lot harder to win in college basketball because of the tournament format. But like you said about them being a brand, like Duke basketball wasn't that when he took it over, and now it is. It is the premier brand, I believe. I think in college basketball, like outside of what Kentucky, maybe Kansas, but I think I'd put
Kentucky,
Duke
Kansas, North Carolina, I think those are the four.
in North Carolina.
But
Like right, it's right there. The Blue Bloods, like they're if they're not one, they're like 1A, 1B, something like that.
no,
It's very impressive what he done. Number four, and I debated this one. It was Gino Oriemo, and Gino kind of reminds me of like it's gonna go off sports. Like when you blow your nose into a Kleenex, you don't say I'm blowing my nose into a facial tissue.
yeah,
Kleenex
it's a brand.
owns the facial tissue market.
Yep, it's the
Gino
brand.
owns women's basketball.
Yep.
11 titles. And like I feel like if you think women's basketball, you think UConn shortly after.
Hmm.
And I think that just talks about you think about a lot of these coaches we talk about, how many of their assistants become, good head coaches. But for him, I think about how many of his players are premier pros, you know,
They're
in the
scattered all across
WNBA.
that WNBA. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
if you think of the best female basketball players of all time, like a good chunk of the top 10 or 20 of that list is going to be UConn players that played for
hmm
Gino. Uh, you know, I know women's college hoops is not as popular as some of the other sports, but I think it's important to mention his dominance.
I wish
He's
he
the
would have went to
Kleenex.
men's and seen what he could have done.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's so dominant. It's
Yeah.
hard to not not put him on the list. Nick Saban was my number three. Of my time, 7 titles, especially in an era when I think you're in real big boy college football where I don't think there's a ton of parity, but I do think that there is at the top. I do think you have 4 or 5 teams every year who are dominant,
Yeah.
and I think it's impressive that he's won 7. I think he's had opportunities to win even more than that. It's really impressive. I mean, you count them next year they're probably going to be number one, number two in the country, right off the top. People think that highly of him that even if he loses all these guys, he loses Mac Jones. Like I said,
He
it's a
turns
football
it over.
factory.
I mean, he
Going to
lost
turn it
Tua
over.
and Jerry Judy and all those guys last year, and it's like,
Yeah.
who cares?
Yep, doesn't
Who
matter.
cares?
People didn't think.
Yeah.
I think they started off being number two, number three, before the COVID. Before they shut down the Big
Hmm.
Ten. They were, a lot of people thinking, oh, number three, and then it was by week three we all knew Bama was the best team in the country.
Oh yeah.
Number two for me, and I debated him as number one, is Greg Popovich, and my reasoning here, and I considered Phil Jackson too, and Phil Jackson is probably who I probably would have put on the list if I took off Geno or Coach K. He's probably my next one out. But I think Greg Popovich, what's really impressive about him, and it's a thing that kind of gets me about who my number one will be as well, he's won across different time periods and won with rosters that probably weren't the best team. He won without, I know Tim Duncan was a mega star, obviously, but he wins without that superstar. He
Yeah.
wins in a way like you can tell the winning is a product of his coaching just as much just as much as it is the players, and he wins with different styles of roster. Phil Jackson. One thing that I thought was he applied his system with the players that he had. Popovich has adapted his system so many different times. I think makes it
Even
really
this year.
impressive. Yeah,
Even this year, I mean, they're not. They were supposed to finish towards the bottom of the West, and I know this is spanning over his entire career, but just you know, looking at it for this year, they're winning games, and that roster is not good. I mean, it's aging, and they have people that you probably never heard of, and they're still winning games.
he realized that DeMar DeRozan is a really good ball handler and put him in a playmaker role. Like DeMar
Yeah.
DeRozan has effectively become their point guard. Like I mean,
Yep.
he is their creator and facilitator. Using he's and they're so good at developing down there. His guys we get head coaching jobs spread all throughout the league. Budenholzer, Boyega, or I think it's how you say his name.
I mean,
Charlotte's
Taylor
coach.
Jenkins. I know he didn't come
Yeah,
directly from Popovich, but it's in that tree. It's in his
it's in the
coaching tree.
Budenholzer tree. Yeah,
Yep.
I think anybody who coaches under him is influenced by him in a major way. I
I think Quinn
I
Snyder,
debated
right?
him
Did
as
you say
number
that?
one. Who, Quinn Snyder?
Yeah. Wasn't he
Yeah, I think
under?
for a while. I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
He was under
He
Coach
was
K
there.
too.
Yep.
Um, and my number one is the same number one as you, Bill Belichick. And I think a lot of people say, "Well, he had Tom Brady." I don't care that he had Brady. I don't care. I could argue that he made Brady just as much as Brady made him. Like you said, it's the hardest league, and I think of like my expectation level for Belichick, kind of similar to how I feel about Saban, to where Saban lost Tua and Judy, and he loses somebody every year who's like just superstar in the NFL, and it's like we know eventually he's going to win. So much this works with Belichick. He loses Brady, Edelman's not himself. He loses all these guys to opt outs, and I somehow expect that the
He'll
Bills are
figure
going to
it
be
out.
great, but I
He'll
expect that the
figure it out.
Patriots are going to win that division until they don't.
Yep.
I mean, with terrible post-apocalyptic zombie Cam Newton back there, like, oh my gosh, he's so bad at football. Uh, I still thought they were gonna win. Like,
Well,
to think of this dude's running to Damian Harris and like, Demir
Rex
Bird was
Burkhead
his best.
still.
Yeah, like Rex Burkhead might have been his best offensive weapon. Like, how? Nothing against Rex Burkhead. This is no,
My,
no.
the thing about Bill Belichick and the NFL like more than any other league, and I don't pay enough attention to the NHL, but more than any other league, the NFL has the most parity year in and year out. Like there's every year maybe 10 teams that could possibly have a chance to win the Super Bowl. And through 20 years, he was always at the top of that list. Like you expect the Patriots every year to beat the Super Bowl and to possibly win. Like it was just the run was unbelievable. I don't know if it'll get back to that. It's just so hard, but I wouldn't bet against it. I would assume that either next year or the year after they'll be right back to where they were.
Yeah, I think he'll at least build them something that can last after he leaves. Hand the keys over to his son or something. Who knows? Um, it's so hard. You're right. It's so hard to win in the NFL. It's so hard to sustain success. It does
Mm-hmm.
take a great quarterback, but like I don't think Brady is the most talented player to ever play the position.
No,
I don't think he's the smartest dude to ever play the position. I think he's awesome. If someone tells me Brady's the GOAT, I won't like put up a big fight about it. But I don't think he's the most talented player to play the position. I'd put that in the hands of Aaron Rodgers or Patrick
Yeah.
Mahomes.
I think
Smartest
those
would be
two,
Manning.
yeah, I think those two together, and Tom Brady did take a lot of deals for that organization as far as contracts
Sure.
to be able to put that money into the defense because their defense was always really, really good. And besides that year they had Randy Moss, I mean, you can't really go back and think of a year that they had great weapons on the outside. So Tom Brady
No.
did make those players better, but they
Sure.
were Bill Belichick. Not only is he the best coach, I think he's the best coach of all time in the NFL.
I do
But I
too.
also think he controlled their roster.
Yep.
He controlled the salary cap and how he's going to pay players and let people walk. I mean, he let great players walk year and Kyle Van Noy just popped in my head. He's in Miami, and he figured out a way to work the salary cap and work that because it's a
Yeah.
hard cap in the NFL. And not only coach that team, but put the product on the field to coach to make them awesome.
I remember everybody being really upset. I can't remember if they traded Deion Branch or let him walk, but he had just won the Super Bowl MVP and he was on the Seahawks the next year. And it was just like that's the Patriot way. You
Really,
keep it churning.
Malcolm Butler.
Yep.
You
I
know,
think
like
they've
everybody thought he was the best defensive back in the league after he made that interception in the Super Bowl. They're like, oh, he's a top 10 defensive back. And they're like, oh, see you later.
you just have that feeling like you're always surprised when they lost. And I do think a lot of his success is attributed to Brady. I don't know that we'd be talking about this if he had, you know, Elvis Gerbach as his quarterback or, you know, Jeff Garcia. I don't know why I'm naming 49ers backups all of a
I
sudden,
think
but
they have,
yeah,
they're intertwined.
it matters. Yeah, one needs the other. I think the closest thing you have to that right now in the NFL is probably the Reed Mahomes relationship. You may see, you know, Reed probably affects Mahomes just as much as Belichick affected Brady, but it works the other way too. Mahomes probably affects Reed's legacy. You know, we're now going to talk about Andy Reid as one of the best coaches of all time if they continue winning. You know,
Well, and I think too,
he probably already belongs in that conversation anyway, but he wasn't going to be like in the truly great coaches
yeah,
without the winning, and you just need a great quarterback to do it.
I think some similarities too between those two. And this will be my last point on it is you, I think even for Tom Brady, and you heard rumblings like he had frustrations with Belichick because it was Belichick's team. It was his way or the highway. We're going to do
Mm-hmm.
things the way I say it, the way I do it. And I think Andy Reid has that same deal in Kansas City, where it's my offense. Yes, Mahomes, you have your input, and we can't do some things unless if you weren't here, we couldn't do some of these things we're doing. But it's going to be my offense and the way I want to run it. And the quarterback, they listen and they do what they're not saying they do what they're told, but they fall in line with the rest of the team. They're not bigger than the team. And you have heard stories. I think Peyton Manning is probably the second best quarterback of all time behind Brady. And maybe that changes with Rodgers and Mahomes. But you've heard stories of Peyton ran that building. Like if he
Yeah,
wanted somebody cut or brought in, it was Peyton Manning was the GM, the coach, and all of it.
yeah,
And and you wonder like maybe if he would have had somebody like when he went to Denver, where hey, you got to kind of get in line here a little bit, and the head coach is the head coach. Yeah, you're still one of the greatest, but maybe you got to have that head coach that can say, "Hey, I know you're awesome, but we still got to do things my way or organizational way."
yeah. I wanted to point out one other thing about Belichick, and this is just they say every week he takes away your best weapon. He does that every time you played. Every time you played Belichick, you could just assume that he's going to do what he can to take away something. He finds what you're weak at. If you're weak at stopping the run, he will turn his team into a run first football team that week. I always admired how with Belichick his game plan was week to week. It wasn't just
Mm-hmm.
this is what we do, and like this is what we do, and we're going to do it, and we're going to assert our will against you. It was like, no, I'm going to find what you suck at, and I'm going to kill you at it. I'm going to find what we're good
Pretty
at, and we're going
much
to keep doing it. But we're gonna find your hole, and we're going to stick a
exploit it.
shovel through it. Yeah, I always thought that was really impressive with him. I think he's if we were doing a top five of all time, I think he'd be near the top of that list too. It was hard for me to leave off these guys. All right, let's see if any of these give you any reaction. Andy Reid, tough. Not probably not up there, but tough. Urban Meyer, which I think winning
Yeah.
at Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, Ohio State, It's pretty impressive. Everywhere he goes, he wins. Bill
The only thing
Parcells.
about him is the off the field stuff but
Oh
it
yeah,
doesn't matter. On the
yeah,
field, he's one
yeah,
of the best.
yeah.
He could be in
Oh,
that
I
conversation.
100% agree. Bill Parcells, and I think this just is part. Saban and Belichick both come from that Parcells coaching tree. I contribute a lot of I attribute a lot of his success as how I view him as a coach is to how his successors go on and do.
And I
That's a
got to
big
watch him
one.
at the Cowboys, and I wish they. I forget how that whole thing ended, but I wish he would have never got fired or let go or
Man,
decided mutually, walked away. Because when Roma was underneath, I thought they could have had a little run there. He finally had a quarterback because when he first came in, we just weren't talented enough. I thought he finally had a quarterback with the Cowboys, and I was like,
Quincy
okay, here we
Carter,
go. Yeah, and it just
Drew Henson,
yeah, yeah. Don't remind me. Don't remind
Chad
me.
Hutchinson.
Look, everybody talks about me being a bandwagon Cowboys fan. There is nothing bandwagon about this
Hey,
Cowboys
Quincy
team.
Carter. Sorry, never mind. My bad.
Yeah.
My other ones were Pat Summit. It's probably an easy one. You're gonna hate this one, but John Calipari.
No, I don't. I think he's the best recruiter in college basketball history, but he's always had the talent and he's won one
Yep.
title. And I know it's hard to win in college basketball, but at some point you got to be judged based off your accomplishments. And you look at him this year, like he doesn't have that amazing talent this
Yeah.
year,
Yeah.
and they're not good. Like he can't adjust.
I wonder what it's gonna be like after the new rules
One and
pass in the
done.
NBA at some point where the one and done is kind of not as in vogue as it was. You may still have it. You're still gonna have it to some extent. You're still gonna have 5-star recruits that don't go to the pros.
I think it could
But
be a
I
lot
wonder
like it
how he'll
used to,
be.
like back in the day where the Cincinnati's and Memphis's and Indiana States or whoever Butlers, like whoever it is, like those teams that can develop and keep 4 year guys and have been
Yeah.
doing that. I think that'll make a huge difference in college. I think it'd make college basketball more fun. You actually know names.
Yeah. My last one was Bobby Cox that I could
Yeah.
throw in there with winning so many division titles in an era where baseball was really hard to do that, especially in I would say a smaller market with Atlanta, but a smaller budget team. It was less impressive if a team like the Yankees did or the Dodgers, but Bobby Cox being able to do that with Atlanta. I don't think baseball managers matter as much, but it's hard to ignore that prolonged success. Anything
Yeah.
else you wanted to add before we get off?
I don't think so. Looking forward to this weekend, the NFL, and watching some more Grizzlies games. And I've got League Pass, so I've been watching a lot. I think my favorite League Pass team right now is the Charlotte Hornets. I'm
Yeah,
not a ball family person, but watching LaMelo Ball is a lot of
dude,
fun. And Gordon Hayward, he looks like the Utah Gordon Hayward. He looks good. I think
that
it
team's
makes
making
you
the
wonder about
playoffs.
him in Boston. Like
Yes,
if they would have used him differently, he could have been the best player on that team. I know Tatum's probably long term better, but man, he looks really good. That team's fun to
he's
watch.
he's getting like career highs in points per game, field goal percentage, and like overall efficiency. Like playing
Yep.
his best ball after people said he was done. Like, and most people laughed at that signing. I I'm a long time Gordon Hayward fan. I think Charlotte makes the playoffs
Yeah, and then one other thing, I know the
for
Wizards
sure.
are absolutely terrible, and that's not a good look for me for them saying they're going to make the playoffs. Russell Westbrook, I'm not going to go and say he's done, but God, he's bad. He doesn't get to the rim anymore. He's just been very bad for that. He doesn't play defense. But Bradley Bill's averaging 35 points per game. I should have went fully into that prediction saying he would average 30. I should have said he would lead the NBA in scoring because he is God, he's good.
He really is awesome. I know there were rumors a couple years ago about him coming to the Grizzlies, and I was like, that sounded like, or you know,
This is for
that's
fun.
yeah, this
Real
is for
quick.
fun kind of thing.
Hold on. I got a question
Oh,
for you.
go
And
ahead.
then we can end it. Would you trade this year's first round pick, maybe next year's first round pick, Brandon Clark and whatever else cap that you got to do to get Bradley Bill? Would you do that right now? He's 28 years old, I think. I think you do it. I think you can get a guaranteed 30 point per game score to put next to Ja. You can't guarantee that in the draft. And I love Brandon Clark, but God, if you can get that, I think you got to look at it.
I think it depends. I want to look up Bradley Beal's contract. I think it depends on what his contract is like.
Oh, it's like
And
30 something million, I think, a year.
yeah, I'm thinking like the time though. The timing. How long is he signed up
I think he just
for?
signed
Yeah,
an
I
extension
think
like a
you're
year
right.
ago. It may have just kicked
Uh,
in.
let's see. This shows he's a free agent after the 2021 season. Oh, contract extension through the 22-2023 season. So you get 2 years of him. I would have some pause about that for the only reason that I don't think this is our window yet. Like I don't think this is the Grizzlies like go for the title window yet. I think we're probably a year or two away from that. Uh, I think you could conceivably like get a decent lottery pick, decent pick from this year if we don't make the playoffs. You get a decent pick, with the Utah pick. You get another one next year. That probably won't be in the lottery. I think we make the playoffs next year. I think it's the year after next that is or it's either next year and the year after that I think are our true window, like competitive
I,
window. And at that point, then I start doing it. I feel like if you don't do so, really that gives you one really great competing year, 22, 23 with Beal at 37 million. I'm that seems like giving up a lot for a very short run, and you're gonna burn out the greatness that you've got with. I don't know. I
I agree, but I do think, you know,
get the
it,
stars. I'm all about getting the stars, but I also don't think you get them in a time period when the rest of your team is not built to compete.
I tend to agree. I think Ja though is different where he can compete. Like he could open your window and you could be ready next year with him.
That's true.
Uh, but I think the reason I say like the Bradley Bill thing is Memphis is never going to lure the free agent star. It's never going to happen. I think we could get a close to a star with Ja because I think people will want to play with him. But we've never lost somebody we want to keep if they're in the organization.
That's
And I
true.
think if you could bring them in, maybe you could keep them. Maybe you could keep them around and get them for another 4 or 5 years after that contract's up. But I don't know. It's interesting because it raises your floor so much, and your ceiling over the next 3 years could be maybe a Western Conference championship game or something or
Do you know
series.
who I think is probably a more likely target at some point? Is probably a guy like Drew Holiday.
Yeah, just
I think that's the kind of guy they're going to go after. I think Ja is going to be the guy on the team. I think we're going to end up surrounding him like with guys like a Holiday, something Oladipo, something like that. Like I think a sub star. Like I think Beal is a star. He's in that upper echelon of players, and I think that his star has gone so far that you're gonna have to give up so much to get him. I don't think it's time to mortgage the future yet. I think we're nearing that window. I think we are definitely nearing that window.
I
I do
think
agree with you on what you
if you
said.
get these guys back though and you start making a run, and I'm not saying you're going to win a title this year, but if you get these guys back and you're going, okay, we've put together a 5, 6, 7 game win streak with Ja and Jaron and Justice are in the lineup. I think you got to seriously look at it. You got to see what you look like with those players on the floor first. You can't do it right
Kleiman's
now,
gonna.
obviously.
I think they're playing a long game though. I think they're not
Yeah,
playing for now. I think they're playing for short. I mean, soon. Like it's not way off in the distance like it felt like it was a couple years ago. It feels
yeah,
like it's right around the corner. So would I do it now? No. I would do it later. I would
yeah.
make that move, and it might not be Beal. It might be somebody who's like Beal. It might be the Celtics want to give up, start blowing things up, and it's Tatum or Brown or somebody like that who
I
might
agree.
fit a little better.
I
Not far.
agree.
It's not far off though. It's really not far off. It's right. It's right around the corner. I probably wouldn't, although I do think going and getting the stars is usually the right move. Giving up, I don't know. I
I
think by the
wouldn't.
time we're competing, Ja's our best player, and I
I
think if you
wouldn't want to
get
wait.
Beal, he's not.
Yeah, but you got to have two stars in this league to win a title.
True. True.
And the only thing I would worry about is Ja is a competitive. I mean, he's in that upper echelon of uber competitive players. He doesn't want to lose very long. And I know
No.
we're playing the long game, but you can't come back next year and be on the well, maybe we get the 8 seed or 9 seed. Like that's not going to be okay with him. He's too competitive. He wants to win, and I don't want it to turn in. We're still way early in this process, but I don't want it to be an Anthony Davis New Orleans situation. Anthony Davis is not the type, personality that forces his way out until he felt forced. He felt backed into a corner to force his way out because it wasn't
Yep.
going anywhere. I don't want it ever to get to that point where we're not putting the pieces around to win.
If you could pull it off with somebody other than Brandon, like if you could make it, you know, Dylan, Grayson, this year's first rounder and a first rounder in 23 and 24, something like that, like later future first rounders, then I'm considering it. But Brandon to me feels like it's like giving up a top ten pick plus what's going to be a good pick this year plus later picks. I'd want
Yeah.
some. I'd want some assurances that Beal was going to. If I'm just looking at it from what it is, it's 2 years of Beal in a time where I don't think the rest of the roster is ready.
Yeah.
You probably have to send Gorgie's contract in there too. Some of the stuff to make it work. I'm not
That's
sure.
it. He's not even playing anymore now. He's been really good and he's not
I know.
playing.
Yeah,
So he's gone at some point.
for sure. Yeah, definitely. Well, Hunter, I got it. This one was really fun. I enjoyed getting into all this stuff. Anything else you wanted to add?
I think that's it. We kind of went a little long, but we appreciate it. And hopefully everybody that's watched it has enjoyed it. And if you don't mind, hit the like or subscribe or whatever. That'd be pretty cool.
Like, comment, subscribe. Yeah, like, comment,
We're
subscribe.
still getting
Yeah.
used to all this.
Yeah, we're trying. Yeah, and follow us over at backyard_blue. Gotten away from the gambling a little bit because just it's
And
not
you're back
prudent
to
for a
school. You
while.
don't have as much time to do it.
That's true. But give us a follow at backyard_blue over on Twitter, and then like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Hit that follow button on the Spotify. We appreciate you listening and watching. Have a good one, everybody.